All right, guys, I think we're just beginning. Um, what I'd like to say is we will get underway in about a minute, just to give time for everyone to join in, people coming. So I'm just going to sit here awkwardly for a minute and we'll just give people a little bit of time. All right, I guess we'll get underway here. Thank you all for coming. More people are joining in, I see. So just to get started, my name is Eric. I am a second year Saba University student. I started my post-secondary graduate, or my post-high school. I just got a text from the the moderator that all is well technology-wise, which is good because I'm not a technology person. Anyway, I started my undergraduate at Dalhousie University here in Nova Scotia. They have a small campus that's dedicated to agricultural pursuits, and that's where I started. I should mention, I just see a question pop up. I'll answer all questions at the end. So I just have a little log of them here. So you guys just post them as they pop up in your mind, and I'll get to them at the end. So anyway, I started at this little campus. I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I went there and I got some very good opportunities to start working in a laboratory that was doing some research on breast cancer, actually. And so I thought, I kind of morphed my ideas of what I wanted to do with my life after doing that research and getting involved in those pursuits as far as human medicine went, and my interest in animal medicine kind of fell off. I was very blessed to get a few grants from a couple organizations to pursue that. And then I was like, okay, human medicine is where I want to go. I think an MD would be a smart choice. And then, of course, I did the whole applying to your native schools. And I applied to Dalhousie once, and I didn't get in. Obviously, I was a little dismayed. Hearing no is always, disheartening in a way. And so I thought, oh, crap, And then just so happens, like a month later, I had an appointment with my family doctor. And so I sat down with him, and I was talking, and he asks the obligatory family doctor questions of how you're doing and where are you going, what's going on, let me know. And I told him what my plans were, and he said, don't even bother with North American schools anymore. Don't even bother with that. He said the system is broken in some places, doesn't work in others, works in some. He said there's a school down south called Saba University, and in his office there were 3 practitioners that had practiced or had gotten their MDs from Saba in the hospital. Actually, the anesthesiologist, the head anesthesiologist in my local hospital performed hijack. My head anesthesiologist at the hospital, my local hospital, had performed my grandmother's open heart surgery, was from Saba. So it had a very good reputation on the east coast of Canada, and I was told that. I was told to pursue it and go here if you're going to go anywhere. So I applied and got in. Everything happened really quickly. I applied a couple months later. I was on a plane to Saba, and I had no idea what to expect. And so that kind of brings me to my first major point that I want to address is when if you're thinking of applying, apply. My MCAT score wasn't fantastic. My undergrad scores were okay. By no means was I creme de la creme of students. And but then I'm on this plane and I'm going, oh my gosh, where am I going? I'm terrified. And I can imagine it's a huge switch for people and their way of life. You go from doing your undergrad, you're in cushy, you know everybody, you're at home, and then all of a sudden you're on your way to this little Caribbean island that's 5 miles square with 2,000 people on it. And logistically, it's terrifying. I was more terrified in the beginning of that than I was doing something else. or the schoolwork or that. So don't worry about that. It's going to seem like a hurdle. It's not. I feel that if I landed on the island and I had no plans, nothing, I would have been fine. The people are fantastic. You'll get to this most terrifying airport in the world, shortest airport. The landing on the plane is terrifying. You will clench, you will maybe scream, but the people are so warm and welcoming down there. And everybody knows if you're a lost medical student on the island, you're totally fine. They know where to send you. Logistically, you're going to have a place to stay. There's grocery stores. It's really not something you need to be worried about. It's something that I really, really wish I had known going into it, because I was very scared. And it was my first time out of North America, my first time away, and I had no idea what to expect. And it went well, and it will go well for you. There are no horror stories. There are no that of getting to the island and not meeting anybody, or not, someone gets lost or this or that. You can't get lost. You're going to be okay. So was kind of my first major point that I wanted to address there. Logistically, it's a sound system. Please don't be scared about it. So you get there and your life will change on the island. So once you're there and you're kind of settled, your life will change. Apart from school, I think it's a very strong and very beneficial area in that you get to live in a different culture. You get to live in a different area that really, unless you grew up unless you grew up in the Caribbean, unless you grew up on a very small island, it's completely different than anything else I'd ever experienced in my life. And the people are very warm and welcoming. But there's your standard grocery stores. Everything down there runs on propane, but you have your stoves and you have air conditioning. You have this and other thing. I hear that can be a point for some people wondering. It's really not that big of a deal. And I honestly had a blast. My entire 2 years there, made fantastic friends. Really enjoyed the island. As far as a small community feel, I really enjoy that. And I really actually had quite a really good time. So you do your 2 years there. So also what people are worried about, I find, is the rigor. They want to know what they're getting into academically. And, you can't lie, it's hard. It's medical school. And then so I was asked to identify maybe some things that make people successful. I was pretty successful academically on the island. I just wrote my USMLE Step One in July and did very well on it, well above the national average, which is a 230. I was well above a 230. Very happy with how I did, and I think a large part of that is to the structure that was on the island and how I went about my day and making sure things went down on the island that I really understood. So I'm just going to go through with a little bit of that for you guys. If you go and you're there, expect the rigor. Don't get caught off guard by it. Even your first semester, there's really not a whole lead in. You go, you do your introduction day, and then you're in it. You're in the weeds, and you've got to figure it out. And you're going to get 300 million pieces of advice coming at you from left and right, from your upperclassmen to your friends to your professors. What you really need to do is figure out how you learn and how you retain information. And you need to test yourself, and you need to be on point with that. You need to be very focused on how you are retaining information. And so how I went about it, again, being what I just said, you need to figure out what works for you. What works for me is everything we were learning, I had to break it down into its most basic forms. I'm not a memorizer. I can't memorize to save my life. So you had to take, if we were learning complement, a system, or some other inflammatory reaction, or I had to break it down to the smallest parts, and then you start to build your tree. I would call it, you'd have your base knowledge, and you add more branches, and then you start to add the leaves on it. And I would go through every concept we had and make a map with the most basic concepts, and then you'd learn a piece of information, and you'd have to figure out how it went back in and it integrated into these basic concepts. And it makes, this long word, it's a gene, it's a this, the protein does this, it's misfolded that way, it's a this, it's a that. If you bring it back into your basic concepts, then you're going to be successful. And if you keep going over them and going over them and going over them, you're going to be successful, because when you bring it down that way, you can answer questions that you really don't know specifically the answer to. And I ran into that multiple times on USMLE Step One, where I'd come to a question and I'd be like, I've never studied this particular malfunction, I've never studied this particular whatever, but because I had a strong base knowledge of a lot of different things, I was able to throw a very well-educated dart. And that's what you really want to be able to do. And that all comes from your base knowledge. You know, you can, if you're a route memorizer, that's fantastic. Not a lot of people are. You really have to be really, really dedicated to your base knowledge, building out from a central point and really grasping that understanding. Otherwise, you won't do well. Besides that, be prepared to work. Be prepared to make a lot of friends. Be prepared for it to be difficult. Be prepared to do things that you never thought you were going to be able to do, like write. There's a very rigorous testing schedule on Saba, and I think that when you're in it and you're doing it, it's very hard and it's very off-putting, and you think, I'm never going to be able to do something like this. You write your shelves, you write your block tests, and all that's doing, really, in retrospect, it was giving me a chance to test myself against questions that I had never seen before, things that I would never have thought of. What is the NBME going to ask me on the USMLE Step One? Shelves were great for that. And, it seems very difficult as you're doing it. It seems impossible. But having had the success that I've recently enjoyed, it's worth it. It really is worth it. You want to go to an institution that's going to test you. You don't want to be placated in any way. You want to be prepared, because there are hard questions coming down the pipeline. And so when you step into a shelf exam, which is, for those who don't know, it's a shelf exam is a subject-based exam that comes directly from the head honchos that write your board exams. We did one in anatomy, was our first one, and we did a bunch. And when you step into that, you want those questions to be easy. And I think the professors at Sable were really good at. They tested us. They notched up levels a little bit, and they tested us so that when we went in, the National Board of Medical Examiners questions seemed easy, and USMLE questions seemed basic. You had to know a little bit more, and they're very good at that. You push the envelope, and then when it comes to these, that's why I think Saba students find a lot of success in National Board of Medical Examiners administered tests. They really do quite well, and numbers don't lie on that. And that's, I think, in large part towards the academic capability of the teaching staff that they have employed there. And, I couldn't fault them at all for my preparation towards the USMLE Step One exam. So now where I'm at, having come home and finished basic sciences there on the island, what you do after that is you stop, and after you write your Step One, then you begin to write your research paper. So every student that goes through Saba has to write a research paper on some topic. So that's currently where I'm at now with my life. I'm currently writing my paper and trying to avoid the ongoing global health pandemic. My paper is on the complement system and how it interacts with neurodegenerative diseases. So part of the innate immune system and how it can be helpful and hurtful in neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, or you get Pick's disease or Huntington's, or along those lines. And then after that's done, I'll be going to clinicals. I have some friends who are in my semester now who are away, and they're already, practicing medicine on real patients. They're students at these hospitals, of course, under attendings, and I'm getting reports back from them. So I'm looking forward to that kind of being my next step. I don't have a whole lot to say. I'm just going to run here in some of these questions and see what we can do. All right, so Joshua. Okay, so the As far as how much Saba costs, there's on their website, there's a cost breakdown. Everything's there. No surprises. There's no surprises in what I've been paying. I did take out a loan as a Canadian student. I know I'm eligible for Canadian student loans, and then I took out a loan on top of that from my private bank. Size of my class. So the size of my class was really small. You look at some of these, actually, I'm really happy with that aspect of it. You go and your classes are not big. Maximum class you'll have is like 50, 60 people. That was really helpful because you could have one-on-one times with your professors. They're not worked to death. There's not 500 students in a class. I've heard some horror stories from other places. I won't name other schools, but where they don't have enough seats for their students, and they have these huge lecture halls. And I don't know how a single professor can possibly manage a class of 400 plus students. It seems unrealistic to me, and that was never a concern at Saba. The ratio was always fantastic in our in favor of the students. We had classes that were really small, and you can just walk up to the professor's office and have a discussion for 10 minutes about something that you just learned, and they're all really, really helpful. Can I choose which city or want to go for clinical in the U.S.? Is it based on some sort of a lottery basis? So for that one, I'm going to direct you to the clinical admissions and clinical department. I know I'll be getting a form that asks me what are my preferences. Right now, with the public health crisis, I guess we'll call it, or pandemic going on, I know it's difficult, and I know there's every organization in the world is facing problems right now. But I think from what I've heard, Saba is doing a decent job of making sure that you get through clinicals, and that's really quite impressive because coming from Canada, you'd have a hard time, going into hospitals and the liability with that. And I've been rather impressed with how much work they're putting into it and really making sure that people are continuing their education. It's been really good. Again, I think that goes down to they really do, they know you, they know who you are. Your professors really know who you are. And when they write a recommendation letter for you that goes to, the admin, or, they can call up and be like, what's so-and-so like, la, la, la. It really is, it really, it's just personal, and it really made the experience for me. So there's a question here, out of your class, were everyone allowed to take the USMLE? Okay, so this is a good question. The way it works is you write a bunch of National Board of Medical Examiners step exam or shelf exams throughout your entire time at Saba. And then when I was there was 2 at the very end that were pathology and physiology. And then you had to write a comprehensive. So you have these 3 chances at the very end. At 5th semester, you write boom, boom, boom. You write those 3, and then if you passed all of those 3, then you're allowed to write the USMLE Step One. So I think the vast, vast majority of our class, everybody passed all 3 of those exams, and those are kind of your last, they're really nice because they're your last checkpoints to be like, okay, test myself, really test myself on the comprehensive, and then move on, go back to the States or Canada or wherever you're going, and then write Step One, because the last thing you want to do is on your record have a poor performance on Step One as your first, you can write it again, and I know people that have, but you really want, as I said earlier, looking back, the rigorous process going in, you really want them to put you through the ringer a little bit. And it's difficult at the time, but it really helps you in the end when, you sit, I was saying this to my family members, they were asking me, what's it like? Well, when you sit down and write Step One, it's 2 years of your life that you've worked so hard, you can barely stand up, and it all comes down to an 8-hour period of 260-ish questions. So when you sit down, you really want to know that no matter what comes your way, you're going to be pretty well prepared. And I think being having all of those steps in place at the beginning, having all those steps in place at the beginning and all the way through your education, and at the very end of your education, you really, you really are put to the test, and you have a chance to test yourself against a very, a very strong facsimile of what you're going to be facing in step one. It's actually a blessing. Some people may think it's a curse, but it's a blessing because those don't go on your permanent record. The residence committees aren't going to be looking at how did you do on your comprehensive, and no. So that's really what you want. Edwin, have you heard from your classmates about a really high and outstanding score yet? I personally haven't heard, but I know there are some classmates. I've heard of one, actually. Sorry, I lie. There was probably, I have to say, our class was small, and we had a lot of people that were very, very intelligent and very high-end swingers when it comes to academia. And, it would not surprise me in the least if I heard some 270s come out of our class. There were a lot of people that really took advantage of what was to offer. And, mine wasn't a 270. I got a 241, which I was very pleased with. But I know some people that did better than I did, and I haven't heard of any real flops yet, which is really what you want to avoid. You don't want to flop. And I think Saba did a really good job of allowing, when we look at the percentage of our class that's going to score very well, it's a high percentage of it. I think we're going to do very well. Yeah, there's always that one person. We had one guy in our class who has actually done one of these sessions before, and he's just a fantastic route memorization guy. But he also understands the basic stuff, like I was referring to. He has both weapons in his arsenal, and he always does fantastic. And so, but again, it also goes to the point is you don't need, I'm really going to warrant to say that you don't need a 280. You don't need a 290. You don't need a 270. I'm more than happy with my score because it opens up the majority of lanes that I would like to practice medicine in. The average is 230, and it's not. When you look at a distribution curve, if the average is 230 and you're above it, you're sitting really pretty. You're really, you're really swinging well there, and you don't have to be this fantastically academically gifted person to do well and make these things happen for yourself. You just have to be willing to put the work in, and the structure is there. You have to find what works for you and build this pile of knowledge and be able to dig through it and make connections in it. And then once you do that, you don't need to be some savant. You really, really, really don't. I would stress that a lot, as you can really find a lot of great success doing what I have done. Because by no means am I a savant. I'm not. I sit there and struggle with, childproof locks sometimes, or this, that, or the other thing, and it just doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. It's really about your work ethic and finding the right program to help you. And I really think Saba's. I really can't say anything bad about it as far as prep work goes, because we were prepared, and we're very prepared to face whatever we may see coming down the line as far as questions go and how the National Board of Medical. I know I'm rambling now, but yeah, I was very impressed with how well we were prepared, and that really is what you need as an IMG. You really want to be prepared for step one. It really is that first hurdle, and it's very terrifying. It's that first big oomph in your training. It's the first big oomph that's going to stay with you for all the way into your residency applications and things. And yeah, so I was very, very impressed, very pleased. Great professors, and that's what you need. And you need someone that's going to work with you, and they really do. What is Sable looking for in their new and upcoming students? Well, I can't comment to their future goals. I have my future goals for myself. But what I can comment on is what my intake class was like, and we were very diverse. We had people from all different walks of life, all different undergraduate institutions. A bunch of people had taken, I think most of us had done some kind of science degree. But of course you have to take the MCAT. I believe that's still a requirement. but looking for, I think, really what Saba does is it really gives you an opportunity to show qualities that maybe other institutions would overlook. It's really about your drive, and it's really about your work ethic, and it's really about, just because you haven't, I wasn't one to show all of my ability all at once on a resume to get into Canadian medical school, and that's fine. But I was able to talk with the admissions department at Saba and kind of figure it out and be a little bit more, have a little bit more lateral, room to work with who I was as a person. I think, yeah, as to what they're looking for, I think if you come to play, I don't think, if you're really, really serious about it and you come to play, I can't see it being an issue. They're pretty fantastic when it comes to that. It's a good spot to shoot your shot, so to say. You want to be a doctor, and they will prepare you to be a doctor, and you will go and you'll work hard, and yeah, if you have the capability of doing it, then by all means go for it. And it's really a chance to prove yourself. You can get no's till the cows come home from all these North American institutions, and in reality, you look at what comes out of it, you get fantastic physicians that are practicing all over the world doing amazing things. So I think you need to have that drive. I think you need to have the work ethic, but totally possible. I think that covers just about all of the questions that I got. Loans, we went over that. I know that as a Canadian, they're available. Class sizes. The outstanding score. Yeah, I know that's coming up. All right, so I guess I'll get any other, I know I'm not the best orator in the world, so I apologize for my ramblings. No, did I find? Oh, hi, Dr. Bolo. Well, so the question that I just got now is from Dr. Bolo, who neuroscience gentleman, doctor who taught me neuroscience at Saba. And he asked, did you find time for fun things like sleep? And anybody that knows me knows that I don't sleep well. But yeah, you kind of have to. I think where the fallacy in that statement is did I find time? You almost have to make time when you set your schedule down. You really have to make time for things that you enjoy. You can't just fall into this dark, deep pit of despair that is neurology. That's for you, Dr. Boileau, my least favorite subject, but good teacher nonetheless. You really have to keep yourself. You really have to keep yourself in line and happy. And when you're happy, you learn better, and it's been proven that. When you sleep, you learn better, and it's been proven that, and you learn that in neurology. I see somebody here suggesting Benadryl. I suggest you really take a hard look at some studies on quality sleep and sleep aids and learning before you start drugging yourself to go to sleep. You really have to build things into your schedule that really help you perform well, and you really have to be tip-top. You have to eat well. You have to have some social time. Those are human constructs or human needs, and you have to really figure your schedule out to allow you to obtain those things whilst maintaining the academic rigor that you will encounter at an institution like Saba. All right, any more? Do you know about the students' experiences with the process of applying to residency? Well, I'm a second year, so I'm nowhere near that kind of thing yet. I do know, however, that Saba students do very well when applying for residencies. What I can say is we've had multiple presentations by staff from Devons that make the trip down to tell us what's up when we move into clinicals and what it's going to be like and how residencies are going to shake out. And I'm not worried. I'm really not worried. I think, everyone gets this false idea that it's impossible and it's this and it's that. Well, if it were impossible and people weren't getting placements and people weren't doing this, you'd have a huge backlog of all these people that couldn't go anywhere, and that's just simply, it doesn't exist. You look at all these students that have gone to Saba before, and it's in the 90s, 90% of people from Saba that apply get a residency, and that's what you need. That's your kind of golden goose ticket, and I mean, it's insane. It's an insane number, and I think they do a lot of work to make sure that you are competitive, because it is a competition, and I hate the fact that it's a competition, but it is, and there's a lot of work done on their end to really buff out you as a person, your grades, your application type, where you go, who you apply to, really how you need to perform. They really put these expectations in place that really, when you go to the end of the process, it makes the end of the process a lot easier. And I've seen that in person, and I've been impressed with it. And so the process of residency, well, I can't personally speak to it yet. I can personally say that I have no worries that as long as I keep performing as I'm expected to, and as Saba is going to help me with, I'm really not worried about it. I'll be able to go where I want to go and get done what I want to get done. No qualms about that whatsoever. All right, just taking a quick look here to make sure I didn't miss anybody. So unless we have any more smart comments from a certain neurology professor, if he's still watching, I think. All right, guys, so what I do want to do, looks like I've answered most of the questions that are in my purview and capability of answering. What I'd like to do, we're give a few more seconds for anybody who's fervently typing. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the admissions team at Saba. They're very helpful. They're great. I had a great time talking to them 2 years ago when I was coming in. They're very personable, good people. And then if you want your question answered by somebody that's not in the system, that's somebody that's in it and doing it, please feel free to ask them to forward the question to my email. I'm more than happy to address any questions that you guys may have at a later date. Just get in contact with the admissions team, say I'd like it sent to Eric, this is the question I have. I'd be happy to answer if you would like a firsthand perspective on it. And yeah, so I think that's going to be us for the night. Oh, half an hour, that's not bad. The question is, do I have to have a bachelor first to attend the School of Medicine? And I can confidently say that I think everybody that went to the School of Medicine has a bachelor's degree. That's how the most medical schools work. I know you need it for Canadian schools, you need it for American schools, pretty sure, most of them. The British system is different, but Saba doesn't run on the British system. They run on the American system. So yeah, most people, you would require a bachelor. And if you aren't doing your bachelor's, if you haven't finished your bachelor's yet, I would strongly push you towards doing a Bachelor of Science in something. It doesn't need to be biomedical. It doesn't need to be this or that. Mine was in animal science. I took things on population genetics of sheep. That was one of my papers I had to write, but it prepares you nonetheless. You do your org chem, your biochem, your physics, those kind of courses, your calculus one. That's what you were looking for if you're looking at doing an undergrad. And then just really digging in and understanding, and that whatever you do, is as long as it's science oriented, I think you'll be quite all right. All right. So again, feel free to pass on any questions through the admissions team. They'll get a hold of me and I'll get a hold of you, kind of thing. If you need somebody that's on inside, if not, they're fantastic. They can probably answer your questions. Again, thank you everyone for joining in and viewing. I hope everyone is safe, stay safe, and enjoy your evening. All right, thank you guys. Bye.